Hello and welcome to this first volume of the Pro In series for 3ds Max 2010. My name is i3D Jack and I'm going to be taking you through this entire tutorial series starting with this first volume. And what we're going to be doing in this first volume is modeling out an interior environment, photorealistic style, architectural type style. And it's going to be pretty involved, and we're going to be going over a lot of tools on modeling, specifically polygon modeling, though we will be using some splines and you'll see some techniques we're going to be using to create some of the objects that we need to create inside of 3ds Max 2010. Okay, so before we actually get started, I just want to make you aware that this tutorial is a little more advanced than things that we have done in the past. We're going to be moving along pretty smoothly and pretty quickly. I'm not going to be stopping too much, if at all, to take the time and explain the core fundamental and basics of 3ds Max. If you're following along with this tutorial, you should be familiar with the 3ds Max interface, standard viewport navigation, how to zoom in and out, pan in the view, rotate, how to grab objects and manipulate them, move them around and rotate them, scale them. You should also be familiar with the 3ds Max interface. If not to an intermediate level, then you should have a pretty good understanding of it. You should also be familiar with quad menus, how to go ahead and access them and what they're used for, and things like that. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's get started here with this tutorial. The first thing I want to do is I want to change my interface color here. If you notice, if you're a Max user, you notice that in the past, by default, 3ds Max has a light colored interface, not the dark colored. This is a fresh installation of 3ds Max 2010. I'm using Service Pack 1, by the way. And by default, the interface is set to the dark preset. Now, you could switch from dark to light or light to dark, whatever you like. It's really not going to make a difference except for the way the interface looks, but the functionality of 3ds Max stays the same. I like the dark interface, but I think for the tutorial, things are going to look a little bit more clear in the video, and it'll be easier for you to see if I switch to the light version, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go up to the Customize menu, and I'm going to go to Custom UI and Default Switcher. That's going to open up this window right here. And we can choose quite a few different number of presets here, as you can see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Max category here, and instead of Default UI, I'm going to switch to the AME Light, which is basically the same thing. The only thing is that the colors change from dark to light. So I'll hit set. It's going to load it up. It's going to give me a little warning window here that says the default settings will take effect the next time you restart 3ds Max. So even though it did switch it to the light, you'll notice that some elements of the interface remain in the dark scheme. That's okay. If you close 3ds Max and open it back up again, it'll go ahead and finalize the transition to the light color scheme here for the UI. Okay, not going to do that now. I'll do that a little bit later on my own outside of the video. So next thing I want to do is I want to load up the project folder. This tutorial comes with the project folder and directory and the assets you need to follow along, which you're going to definitely need to be able to get the most out of this training product. Okay, so to load up the project folder, we'll just go up here to the Max icon. And we'll go down to Manage and go to Set Project Folder. Once you do that, the browser folder window opens up, and what it shows is basically just a browser like you would in any other software. What you want to do is go and look for the folder called Pro In 3ds Max 2010 Volume 1, which is the project directory for this tutorial. Okay, I'm going to select the project folder and hit OK. And it looks as if nothing happened, but what actually did happen behind the scenes is that our project folder was set up. So that's very important. Now I can actually access the scenes, the files, any assets that I need that are located in the project folder. I can now access very easily. Okay, so that's going to do it for that. Just before I wrap up this video, I just want to mention very quickly parts of the interface that we will be using pretty heavily. We will be using the graphite modeling tools, which are new in 3ds Max 2010. We're going to be using that pretty heavily since this first volume of this tutorial series is going to deal very heavily with polygon modeling, so we're going to be using graphite modeling tools. We'll be talking about that a lot. And we'll also be using some other elements here of the interface, the main toolbar here, the main menu here. We're going to be using especially modifiers. We're going to be using quite a few modifiers here to get the job done. We're also going to be using the command panel here on the right quite a bit. Okay, so that's going to do it for this overview video. In the next video, we'll go ahead and get started here with 3ds Max and move along.